car stops on a dime now. But it wasn't always like that. In fact, when I got the car originally, it barely had any brakes. Welcome back, YouTube. Another video on the E30 today, and we're gonna try something different this time around. I have a mix of a storytelling with DIY, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a second, but I want to take you back and sort of show you what I went through to get this car a complete brake refresh or overhaul. So the initial plan was just to get a brake bleed done. I figure had a lot of air on the lines, and that was the main cause for the pedal going all the way down at times and getting me into some scary close calls. So I got myself a Motive power bleeder after reading a lot of raves about it, because I was gonna do this job on my own as usual. Got some nice ATE brake fluid and a spare afternoon to get this job done. So here we go, and I get the power bleeder connected, get the pressure up to 15 psi, and out of nowhere this braided clutch line just snaps off under pressure and sprays brake fluid all over that area in the engine bay. As you may know, brake fluid is highly corrosive and eats through paint like it is nothing. So that turned into a bit of a project all of a sudden. I ended up spending a lot of time just cleaning up all of the brake fluid and trying to save my paint on the engine bay. In the end, it wasn't really that bad. I got to it right away and just sprayed a bunch of water. After I got everything cleaned up, I used a hose clamp to keep the line in place under pressure and just continued on. So I got the system under pressure and I moved on to the first caliper, that being the passenger side on the rear, which is the furthest away from the reservoir and the one you always want to start your bleeding with. And as you can see here, I am using an open wrench to attempt to open the bleeding valve. And this is a horrible idea, by the way. I sort of knew that going into it, but I didn't have the right size of a line wrench to work with. I believe it's 6 or 7 millimeters. So I tried to use the open wrench, which is what I had. And of course, you guessed it, I ended up stripping the bleeding valve. At that point, I decided to call it a day, and that was my first attempt at getting the brake job done, which was a complete failure. Fast forward 6 months and I'm still driving around with almost no brakes. So I decided to break one of my rules and just take this car to a shop and just be done with it. Found a place that's close to where I live, and they have great reviews. These guys have been there forever, so I figure why not just take a chance. After all, it is just a brake bleed job, and what's the worst that can happen? If anything, I'll be happy with the service, and I just found myself a new shop that I can take the car for other things that I may not want to get into myself in the future. And since I was gonna have a shop do the job anyways, I figured I might as well replace all the brake lines, so I got myself a new kit from Condor Speedshop, brand new stainless steel lines to go with it. So I'm dropping the car off here, and I was just told that they may not be able to install my brake lines because they don't deal with customer brought in parts. So I'm gonna wait for the manager to see if they can make an exception for me. So I ended up talking to the shop manager, and he did agree in the end to install the stainless steel lines for me. That was great. They didn't see any issues given that they're performance parts. I guess they don't want to risk installing some generic low quality parts that somebody may bring in and have customers complain if something goes wrong after the fact, or if they see fitment issues. So that made sense. Anyways, I dropped off the car, and they promised to try and get it back to me today, which would be awesome. So everything seemed fine, and I was really excited that I was finally gonna get this job done. However, it didn't get done, and here's just one of the reasons I hate dealing with mechanics. And I can't give these guys a bad review or anything like that. They never really touched the car, which is precisely the problem. You know, a lot of these shops have just way too much volume, and business is good for them, which is great, but they can't be honest and just with a straight face tell you, I have too many cars, I'll probably never touch your car, or come back at another time. No, they'll take you in, and in my case, they asked me to come in on a Friday morning and to like be the first one there. So, you know, I ended up making arrangements, you know, dropping off my son earlier, and, you know, while I was getting the E30 and switching cars, bringing the car early, all of that, only to find out later that same day in the afternoon that my car was exactly where I left it. And they had not even touched it, and they tell me that, you know, I was too busy and they were gonna try and get to it on Saturday, but they only work Saturday half day, and Sundays they're closed, so it was likely that they're not gonna have the car until Monday, and I was not about to leave my car over the weekend. So I bring the car back on a Monday, and the owner happened to be in the office, and didn't give me any confidence that they were gonna get to my car that day or at any point during the week. So I had enough of that, and I just decided to take the car back and deal with this some other time. So about a week later, I go to one of my favorite meets here in South Florida. It's the Fuel Fed Classics and Coffee, and I take my E30, of course. So I'm there, and here's just one of the things I love about the car culture and the community in general. I meet this guy that I've met before at another Cars and Coffee, but never really had a chance to talk too much. And you know, we're talking a lot about cars, and I'm going over everything that I've done to the E30, and, you know, the fact that brakes was next on my to-do list, and he very casually said, hey, you know, if you want, you know, stop by my house and I'll give you a hand with the brake bleed. And little did he know that I was taking that offer dead seriously, knowing that I was gonna get somebody to help me, and in a place with every tool and a lift available to me. I just couldn't pass the opportunity, and I asked the guy if it was okay if I got new pads and rotors, and we did a complete brake refresh, and lucky me, he said sure, no problem. So that's how the complete overhaul happened. So we have all new parts for this job, including brand new stainless steel lines from Condor Speedshop, 2 cans of ATE Type 200 for the flush, and I went ahead and ordered some brand new pads, fronts and rears, and brand new rotors. These are Zimmermann's coated rotors for the rears as well as the fronts. Now what you're about to see is not a full step-by-step DIY video as I usually like to make for the channel, but keep in mind this guy was already inviting me into his home, letting me bring in all these parts for what started as a bleeding job, and basically giving me the big part of a day of his personal time to help me out. I was not about to ask, hey, do you mind if I bring all my camera gear and record the whole process so that it takes us 2 or 3 times as long to get this job done? And believe me, it takes a long time to record anything you do in the car. Sometimes I wish I could just turn off the camera and work a lot faster, but you know, I like creating the video, so I do it. Some of the footage I capture, and I'll just talk over it. So here we are working on the front calipers. I removed the brake lines using line wrenches, of course, and then it's a matter of taking the front caliper off. There's 2 19mm bolts on the back side that you remove, and you can take the whole caliper in one piece. With the caliper removed, it's pretty easy to take the rotor completely off of the hub, and there's one torque screw. Some may or may not have it, but one that you need to remove, and the rotor just comes off. I then installed the new rotors. put the caliper back in place, added the new pads, and installed the stainless steel brake lines. The rears are pretty much the same process, and here's a shot of the new rotor spats and stainless steel lines installed. So then we moved on to the brake flush, where we basically bled the entire system, added brand new fluid, and got rid of all the air on the lines. And we did this the old-fashioned way, which is highly recommended if you have two people, you know, pushing down and pressing on that pedal to make sure you get rid of all the air. We did use the power bleeder while doing this anyways, because it makes it a lot easier to keep the reservoir full of fluid at any time and reduces the risk of introducing air into the system. So the bleeder is attached, is full of fluid, and while you're doing the bleeding with the pedal and another person on the, you know, managing the bleeding valves, you don't have to worry about the reservoir or the fluid at any time. So that worked very well, and we ended up bleeding the entire system in a matter of a couple minutes. So let me show you another view in better light, I guess. And after some use, you can see the coating on the rotors has worn off, of course. The pad would do that, and it looks nice and shiny. Here's the stainless steel brake line again. No leaks, everything working perfectly fine. I did install new bleeding valves were necessary. I had this one, I believe, or the one, some of them were stripped, and I replaced them. I got new ones, and that's pretty much it. I think just to finish this off, I'm gonna be also painting these calipers. They're starting to get rusty, and you know, putting a nice coat of paint will make them look a lot better. So I'm gonna be doing that in another video. I got this kit from Amazon, so I plan to paint them black very soon. Alright, so there you have it, full brake refresh, and these cars stop very well considering how old they are. In fact, the brakes feel better than some of the newer cars that I've driven. So if you are on the fence or you are starting to feel that pedal a bit soft, I highly recommend you go through it and, you know, get a full brake refresh done on your car and get quality parts, the whole kit at, you know, ECS Tuning or some of the other online stores are well worth the money, and it comes with everything you need. Not a hard job after all, and especially if you do it with a friend, like I had the luxury to do so. I think that's gonna do it for this video. Once again, please drop your comments below, and I will see you on that next one. Peace.